The Wednesday, March 19th, 2025 meeting of the Finance Committee. We are currently in the Public Safety Complex at 576 Pleasant Street in the training room in the facility. We also have a Zoom link, which is available with our agenda having been posted online. We are a committee of 7. We have 4 present, and I believe 1 en route via Zoom, but quorum is of 4. We have 4. I declare we're open for business. So we'll officially start. I'm going to take most of this in order, but I might interject one before we go too far. But the item on our agenda is reserve fund transfer requests, if any, and we do have one sent to us today, forwarded to all of you. Sponsor is the town administrator. Heather, you want to walk us through that?
Sure. So Open Space Recreation Planning Committee has been meeting for a number of months. And one of the things they'd like to do, and we have started the process, is reaching out to the state and applying for their land conservation assistance grant. It's a planning grant that helps them have materials to be able to print publications and use My Survey, SurveyMonkey, and various other tools to get community input. And it's something that we can get a good portion of those funds from the state for. The grant is 90% from the state. It's a 10% match. We anticipate that we're going to have an FY26 component to this. They allow you to apply to the grant multiple times as long as the total amount requested is under $20,000. The part we'll need assistance with in the fall is going to be redoing the GIS maps that we have as part of the plan. And that piece we're going to ask for later because we believe the timeline is a little bit later. So this grant is about $3,360 in total. That's the amount we say the project is going to be. Of that, we're responsible for 10% of it, so that 10% would be $336. So this is just a reserve fund transfer, not something we anticipate at the beginning of the year, to be able to match that 90% grant. I don't have an approval yet. I've been working with the state. They believe everything is in order, and we should have an approval shortly.
I'm going to reverse Robert rules and ask, are there any questions before we take a motion?
None here, no.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Is there a second? Any
Second.
discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? I don't think we have somebody online, so I don't think we need a roll call. Is that true, Heather?
I believe we have Neil online, but he's not a member, so I
He's
think you're
not.
good.
One quick question for
Yeah,
the
quick
map.
question?
Yeah, so 10% of 336 would be 336, but there's a 9550 balance in the account.
Yeah, so we're just putting this in the select board supplies account because we don't have a committee called Open Space.
Okay.
So
it's
we
just to
need a
cover
location
this.
for it. So even though there's money in that line, we anticipate using that for our day-to-day operations. We just needed a spot to be able to put the match.
Okay, thank you.
Motion's been made and second. Any further discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. It carries. So I need the parliamentarians in the room to help me out. We have 3 sets of minutes, but technically they're not on our agenda. But I believe they could still be addressed,
Yeah.
that they're not significant enough that somebody would or would not attend the meeting by not reading that. So, so we have 3 sets of minutes, one being February 26th, one being March 4th, and one being March 12th, with dueling and competing authors, because there was a changeover of clerk during that period. This also, parliamentarian-wise, is going to be a little challenging because I think Ben's going to have to recuse himself, or excuse me, abstain.
You know-
So, is there a motion for the February 26th minutes?
So moved.
All in, excuse me, any discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Stay.
Jeff, and record will show that Ben is abstaining, because he was not present. The minutes of February 4th, is there a motion there?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second, any discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Record would show Ben is going to abstain, he was not present. Minutes of March 12th, which appropriate to say, compliments to both of you for, in your clerk role, to prepare these. The writing style is different, but both of you managed to capture the essence of the meeting in the minutes, so thank you very much, both of you.
Anytime.
March 12th, is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
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 And Ben votes aye. Any noes? None? Any abstentions? None?
Hey, Mark, just a quick question. There's nobody on the, just to make sure I get it right, nobody on the,
Not
No.
from finance.
okay.
No. We have one out of the country, one in Florida, and one recuperating. So,
It's okay.
the healthy amongst us
We're here, Mark.
are here, So our next order of business is presentations of essentially DPW and the number of budget centers that fall under the DPW and DPW director, being snow and ice, cemetery, and to some extent the water department. So Travis, if you're ready, we're ready for you.
Sure. Good evening, Travis Tebow, Paxton DPW Director. So I'm just going to go down the line items. If there's any questions on anything, you can see the percentages on the right-hand column of the differences from what had been approved for last year. So director salary, that's contractual, 94,464. Employee wages, I would like to state that this is still under union negotiations, so still yet subject to change. 446,734. Administrative services manager, 30,596. Purchase services, 188,600. You can see there's a fairly significant increase in the percentage there from what was approved last year. Supplies, 29,000, sorry, versus 18,000. Again, you'll see there's a pretty significant increase there. MS4 permit work, we're removing that line item for creating a stormwater enterprise fund.
Travis, do you mind if we ask questions as you go along?
Absolutely.
So on the page that you just took us to, purchased services, at a balance of 188.66.
Yep.
And there's detail of that, I don't know if Heather can call it up, but that shows repairs and building maintenance and so on and so forth. Which I actually have two questions to.
Certainly.
And I'm getting ahead of ourselves in terms of some other slides that we may have, but we've basically approached this particular budget this year with budgets that were submitted in guidance, which reflected a 400 and some odd $1,000, I don't mean to be flippant about that, but I don't have the exact number, deficit. And then there was budgets that were submitted that were out of guidance in terms of 11 or 12 departments that really were making a case for, they couldn't comply with the 2.5% restriction.
Certainly.
My point is that the 132,900 for repairs and the 43,200 that's in your guidance budget is also the exact same numbers that are in out of guidance. So my question is, number one, am I missing something? And number two, has it been duplicated? Vis-a-vis, is it in there twice? Because they're the exact same numbers.
Nope, so the information on the out of guidance, and this was going off of where we were as of not quite the first of the year, but fairly close to the 1st of January, which would basically be the 50% mark throughout the fiscal year, correct? So at that point in time, equipment maintenance, we had spent 78% of our line item for equipment maintenance by the 1st of the year, or 6 months into the fiscal year. So on the out of guidance, you'll see it asks amount submitted and cost for FY26. So what we had submitted, and maybe I made an error on filling out the forms for the out of guidance, because it's new documentation for us as well, so that may have been my error.
So Travis, I don't want to stop you from explaining and defending, which I'd like to come back to.
Okay?
My first question is it in there twice? And I believe it is.
I believe it is not.
Well, there it is in out of guidance.
Yep, so out of guidance, cost for FY26, I took it as the column to the right-hand side was where we were supposed to be putting in the requested amount, and the column on the center right-hand side is where we were putting the amounts that we had actually submitted. So maybe it was a misunderstanding on my part on how to properly fill out the form.
Okay, so on the just to be clear, Travis, and I think we can work with this, but, so what was submitted was on the left, what you really need is on the right, so really what's in out of guidance should be the difference between the column on the right and what was on the left.
Correct.
Okay.
If the amount submitted was at 2.5% gap, right?
Yes, so and going back, so I know it looks like it's 2.7, but that wasn't on the fault of Travis or Tiffany. They did a great job.
No, I understand
It's
that.
because Larissa went in afterwards and double-checked numbers for me, and the number we had from FY24 or FY25 was slightly different, which jumped that number slightly higher, but because we already did the out of guidance, I wasn't too concerned about it.
Okay.
My fault.
So that was my understanding, was the column on the right-hand side, the numerical column on the left-hand side was what we had submitted for the in guidance, and the column on the right-hand side was what we feel as though we need for the department. In the bottom, 107,900 is the difference of those
Yeah,
two.
so just to make my point clear, not looking to find out or even care who did or who misunderstood or what the error was. Submitting two budgets is a challenge for all of us. My point that when we look at the in guidance and the out of guidance, I believe those two numbers are in both budgets. And therefore, our deficit is overstated by $175,000. So enough of that. We can defer off camera to another meeting, but I just want to ask that that be pursued because I'm going on record as saying I think it's in twice. And that's a big number that we're trying to determine what our deficit is and what potentially an override number would be. And If 175,000 is in twice, then it'd be nice to take it out. So, that's all, sorry.
I apologize for the confusion.
So, so now as you defend the maintenance numbers and the
Sure.
repairs numbers.
Sure.
Okay, you and I and Heather know this, not everybody else does. The Capital Improvement Planning Committee has met for months, and they completed their vote last week, and they're meeting to review their CIPC committee report tomorrow night for submission to the Select Board. In it is $220,000 for you to buy new vehicles in the municipal DPW used vehicle market.
Sure.
That happened last week. This was prepared a long time ago. And it hasn't been approved, it hasn't gone, through the gauntlet that it's got to go through. But if it does go successfully through, does that impact your particular repair numbers? Because you'd be replacing the vehicles that you're spending the money on repair and maintenance.
Sure. So ideally, yes. To give you a straight answer, I can't, honestly, because it's going to depend upon what we're able to find for used vehicles, if they need to have work done to them. Are we able to get fairly newer used vehicles, or are we looking at more extensive maintenance to get something up and running? So I'd love to say, yes, absolutely, we could drop that by 30,000 if we can get the capital improvement stuff, but the fact is, we're not purchasing new, we're still purchasing used, so I can't give you a solid answer at this moment in time. With that said, I would think that regardless of what we purchase used, versus attempting to try to rebuild the 1989 Mac, it's going to be a cost savings. Whether it will reflect in FY26's equipment maintenance line item or not, again, I just can't say at this point in time. Does that make sense?
For your presentation, yes, it makes
Okay.
perfect sense, yep. What I'm trying to do is get it out of there twice and reduce it.
I understand that, but I want to be honest with you, with all the residents, with everybody that's here. It really depends on what we can find for used vehicles. If we're replacing that 1989 Mac with a 2023 Mac that's got very low miles, which is a possibility, and at a reasonable price, no, we should not have to do any work to that piece of equipment versus the 1989 Mac. So it may make a difference. I just can't guarantee that that's what we're going to be able to find.
Quick question, what's your so this budget is based on spending X on this machine, X on that machine, roughly from what you know of, what you have. Is there a strategy that you're looking at applying as you go out? Like, for example, if you had a 2015 truck, you'd say, okay, that one's only in there for $5,000. We just have to, do some to 'em. You would say, okay, that's staying. I'm not even going to look for that. So I'm guessing with that 220K, you have a strategy of what you're looking for in that market.
Yeah, so for what we're looking to replace is a 1989 Mack six-wheel dump truck, which
Okay.
is out of service at the time. A 2012 one-ton dump truck that's in extremely rough shape at the moment, and a 2014 Ford F-350 pickup truck. Ideally, the two dump trucks is what's first on our line items to be able to replace. They're the working trucks that we utilize every day. Not that the pickup isn't, the pickup gets used every day as well, but we're not hauling loam, gravel, stone, sand with it. We're not working it the same way we are working the bigger trucks. So yes, our strategy is to attempt to go after the larger, more versatile trucks as opposed to the pickup first.
Right.
That's where we're starting.
Just a quick question. I know capital fleshed this out, but I can't remember. We're definitely not going to try to repair the 89 Mac, right?
No,
Yeah, it's beyond, okay.
yes.
Yeah. In the half-ton dump truck that, or 1 ton, is that a 2011?
2012.
Well, got it, okay.
Any further questions on the purchase services?
So just, while everyone was talking, I just went back, so I added here, just so everyone can see, where it says more needed. So that's the additional amount for each of these lines that the DPW is asking for on the out of guidance. So it doesn't come to 107.9, I did triple check it, it's 106.7. So you save a little bit, Mark, not what you were looking for, but a couple pennies.
So, cup of coffee, it's in there twice at 175,000. That's my story, and I'm sticking by it.
Okay.
So,
So the other fairly significant change that we had in the DPW budget was under supplies. Heather, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the supplies line item, you already have it? Perfect. So you can see we increased the line item signs and posts from $500 to $1,000. I'll tell you, to replace signage is not cheap. Even $1,000 doesn't get us much. Sandstone and gravel, we're looking to increase that from 3,000 to 8,000. Ideally, I would still like to see that even higher than that, but this was in order to try to keep it in line with the budget guidance that was provided to us. The sandstone and gravel gets used for every job we do. Anytime we do an excavation, if we have to cut out a road because there's a major sinkhole, a ditch, anything of that nature. If we're working in intersections to do drainage work, anything along those lines, we're using stone around pipe, we're using sand around pipe. Gravel needs to be put down before any paving job. So if we're out, for example, let's say we have some rough areas on Hill Street. Ideally, we're going to go out there this year with a little planer that the town owns. We're going to plane down a section, and we're going to repave all of that afterwards. Small sections, repairing trench patches, items of that. So that line item comes in between that and asphalt and tar. Those line items are stuff that we utilize consistently. Coal patch, I'm sure everybody in town has driven around and you see potholes this time of year pretty significantly. What was approved last year, we're sticking with that figure because it's still adequate enough for us at this time. Gasoline, this is for all small equipment, it doubled from 500 to 1,000. Safety supplies, we're looking to increase that from 6,000 to 7,000. This is everything from rubber gloves to safety glasses to vests, earplugs, so on and so forth. We also use this line item for our staff's clothing allowance as well. So this is where they purchase all of their steel toe boots out of it, anything of that nature. Any questions on supplies?
It says you're looking for alternatives. Is that anything come up for the cold patch?
Looking at alternatives. It's a good question. I'm not certain what that note was referring to.
Oh, it's gone.
So other than, other than cutting it out and paving where we have those issues, okay?
Okay.
That would kind of be the alternative.
says,
There are-
looking at alternatives, double cost. Are you looking to double the cost? Is that the-
At this moment in time, no, I am not.
Okay, good.
Could have been an old comment from the year before where the costs had gone up double.
Yeah, it could have.
And that's why last year, if you had asked the question, the answer probably would have been, yes, we are looking.
Yep, and it could have. Any other questions on supplies? The,
Travis, the MS4 permit work, AKA stormwater,
yep,
that's out of your department budget now.
correct.
Heather, can you kind of explain to us, because the cost didn't disappear?
No, the cost didn't disappear. We don't have a cost yet. We are currently working on that. So back in November, on November 18th at the special town meeting, the town voted to establish a enterprise fund for the stormwater, right? So that allows us to look at stormwater separately. That cost will still end up going to be passed on to folks in town. It will just get passed on in the form of an assessment. We're still trying to figure out what those costs are to be able to meet our requirements of our permit, as well as how to divvy those pieces up. So that will come up at a future select board meeting with all those details.
So that's going to have to come up pretty quickly.
Yes.
Okay. Last question, Travis, in the budget here, are you fully staffed? Does this budget reflect your having a full crew, full complement of staff?
This budget does reflect having a full staff at this moment in time. We are short one staff member.
Okay. But filling that position, it's in the budget here.
Yes, it is.
Just to confirm, that's the 2.7 or 2.5% budget, not the requested budget.
2.5%, yes.
Okay? Taking us to snow and ice?
Did you want it? Mark, did you want to do the two out of guidance sheets? So you looked at the first one, but not the second relative to DPW? I know the answer is no, but should we while we're here? So that we don't switch departments?
Okay. That could lead to my cup of coffee, but,
I'll be quick about it. Which one are we looking at first?
We are the first one, Heather?
Yep, I can go back to that one.
thank you.
Blow it up too.
So again, my understanding when filling out these budget increase requests was to put what we submitted on the left-hand side, what we feel the department needs on the right-hand side. You'll see the difference. Equipment maintenance, again, at the halfway mark in the year, we had already spent 78% of that line item. Garage, at the halfway mark of the year, we had spent 89% of that line item. That line item goes to pay all of our regular bills for the facility, for the department, as well as any maintenance needs that we need to have done on the building itself. Safety training, we were looking to increase this from 5,000 to 66. We were also looking to put line painting back into the DPW department's budget, as well as replacing the two sections of guardrails on Marshall Street that we've spoken of the last couple of years, and reinstalling the $5,000 that was previously in the budget for rental equipment. Line painting hasn't been done now in 2 years. And we've been looking, again, these two sections of guardrail, I believe we've talked about it the last 2 or 3 years, maybe longer at these meetings, so. That's where I'm at.
So at the CIPC meeting the other evening, Chapter 90 reared its head.
Yep.
Which is essentially for road work, and by extension, mostly paving,
Yep.
which is what you'd like to reserve it for.
Yes.
Totally understood that and understand that. Can any of these items be Chapter 90 eligible?
I'm not certain off the top of my head at this moment in time, so I will have to look into that.
Because in a broad definition, they are road.
Yep. So such as like the line painting, I'm not certain if I can allocate the funding for Chapter 90 specifically just for line painting without first have it being part of a project.
Right. So,
Does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
yeah, and then what I want to make sense of what I'm saying, we're not looking to take it away
Yep.
from paving.
Yep.
Because that's a hot topic, and we're fully on board with that. But under unusual circumstances where we're trying to be creative, if something could be looked at to partially subsidize this, that's the question.
Okay. Again, I'll have to look into it.
Mark, if I may, quick question on line painting. How, not to be specific, but how much lines would that get us painted?
That would do everything that, every line that we paint in town,
Okay.
that would cover.
Got it. And what's the general, like, this is a real question, I don't know the answer, what's good practice on painting lines? Is it just when they wear out, or is there every?
It depends on the type of paint you're utilizing. So
Yeah.
there's a couple of varieties of paint that can be used for line painting. If you drive around town right now, you'll see how faded they are.
Yeah, yeah.
So, again, I believe it's been close to 2 years since we've painted last. Ideally,
yeah.
we may be able to do one half of the town one year, one half the following year. I don't believe that's ever been a practice in this town, but it may be worth attempting to do it.
No, I just was kind of curious as a guidepost. And guardrails, is that 47.5, is that basically for Marshall Street?
Yep,
That-
that was 2 decent-sized sections of guardrail over on Marshall Street, and those were the last quotes that we received, plus I don't recall the percentage off the top of my head what we added on to the quote, so I don't want to state that, but there's a percentage added to what the previous quote.
That was to put the metal guardrails in where you now have the
One section is cable.
cable, the old cable,
the
and
post
or
and
post
cable,
and cable.
and the other section has steel face
Yep.
guardrails, but it's telephone poles as posts.
wood
And
posts.
the posts are
Yeah.
fairly well rotted out.
Okay.
Yep, gotcha. Oh, that's clear.
Any other questions?
None here.
Supplies, so we were looking to add a small denominator, small nomination, figure above and beyond what we had submitted originally of $6,100, $1,600 as opposed to $1,000 for signs and posts, $10,000 as opposed to $8,000 for sandstone and gravel, $7,500 versus $4,000 for asphalt and tar. Again, $1,000 doesn't go far with signs and posts. For your typical stop sign and post setup, we're looking at a couple of $100 for a singular sign and post. I feel as though I already kind of spoke on the sandstone, gravel, asphalt, and tar, so unless there's any other questions.
With what you spent last year, is it all gone? Did you run out by the end of the year? We weren't able to complete projects?
For signs and posts, I can tell you that money was spent by September this year. Sandstone and gravel, at January 1st, we had already spent double what we had allotted. So even asking for the additional $2,000, it still depends on what we're doing for projects, right? So it's,
Every time you have a main break, you use sandstone and gravel, pretty much?
nope, that gets paid from the water department.
Okay.
So that's
So this is just completely,
just
separate of the
completely
water-
highway.
okay.
Yep.
All highway.
We keep it completely separate,
Okay.
you know, and sometimes sand we're purchasing and we're charging towards snow and ice as well. Like this year with some of the ice storms we had to add some sand to the mixture in order to get a little grit because of the ice we had throughout town. So.
But just to confirm, you said that you had doubled it, so that means you had spent 16,000?
No, so last year we had originally allotted $3,000 for sandstone and gravel. By January, we had spent over $6,000.
Okay, thank you. And so we're asking for, this year you're asking for 2,000 more on top of the 6,000, and then
So
one more is another 2,000.
Yeah, so we, in order to stay within the 2.5%,
Yeah.
we put down an $8,000 dollar figure. I feel as though it would serve the department to have $2,000
Yep.
additional above and beyond that.
And there's no way asphalt and tar has gone down in price.
No.
No.
You know, the plants aren't open yet, but I can't imagine they're
I find
coming
that hard
down.
to believe.
If there's no further questions, want to move to snow and ice? Snow and ice budget, the only change we have from last year's submitted budget is $1,000 greater in the overtime wages. I can tell you, just as some reference points so that everybody's aware and we're being completely upfront about everything, this year the prices, I believe, stayed the same, correct, Heather, for salt? I don't believe we had an increase this year in salt, in the price of salt. I'm expecting with no increase this year from the same company, we're going to see an increase next year. We're required to submit a minimum, an average, and a maximum tonnage we're allowed to whomever, whichever salt company we are purchasing from through the coalition. At the same price as we had last year, our average salt usage comes to a dollar figure of $149,920. So we're budgeting currently $130,000 for salt and sand. At the average amount of salt that we purchase each year, we're looking to be $20,000 higher than what we're budgeting for if the price does not increase. So I want to make sure that I'm being clear about that. This year we used just over the minimum purchased amount of salt. Even though we had a fairly rainy season this year, our staff are trying to do everything that we can do to decrease the amount of salt we're putting down on the roads by calibrating the trucks, by sending our staff to trainings, and for them to learn better procedures than what they'd done in the past. And we had a lot of events, even though it didn't seem like we had too crazy of a winter. We had 13 days and/or nights where we had plowable snow this past season, where every time we're out plowing, we're also treating roads. Above and beyond that, we had another 31 days and/or nights that we were out treating roads. So, just because we went out and plowed snow on a Monday doesn't mean that we're not out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, still trying to clean up the ice for that snow. So I don't know if folks back at home are aware of this fact. Especially if we get a good sunshiny day in February or March, the sun heats it up, it melts, refreezes on the road. So we're back out, 2, 3, 4 days later sometimes. So it can get costly, but we are doing the best we can to decrease the amount of salt usage we're using. Any questions?
Travis, part of this point is academic, because isn't this the single one budget item or budget account that the town is allowed to go over?
can deficit spend, yes.
So that point having been made, a year ago, you spent in FY '24, you spent 169,000. This year, do you have any idea what you've spent so far, FY '25?
There's only about 10,000 left.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
Okay, yeah. So $10,000 left with the number of months left, but basically good weather left, so you're probably gonna come in under budget, which makes your FY '26, it's a jump ball in terms of what kind of weather we're gonna have, but it's
Yep.
a good number, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that we need to add more money to the snow and ice budget. I just want to educate people, because if we do get an extremely difficult winter, this winter was pretty tough for us in the cold way, right? January and February, we had the majority of the days were below freezing. We had a lot of rain. We did use a lot of salt, but we stayed just above our minimum purchasing. We're not filling the barn right now to be prepared early in the spring. Currently, the salt barn's sitting at roughly 50% capacity. So I feel pretty comfortable if we do have an early fall storm. And we'll get the barn topped off earlier in the fall anyways, but in trying not to spend more money than is necessary, I don't think we need to spend it anymore at this time through snow and ice, as long as we have no more weather.
And it just goes to, if I may, it just goes to show you that that number of 13 storms, most of those were 1 to 3 inch storms.
Yeah,
know?
we didn't have a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
snow, as far as, many storms that had a lot of accumulative snow.
Nuisance, but shows you that nuisance can cost a fair amount.
Yeah, sometimes it's worse.
Yeah.
The rainy days in the winter are worse for our budget. It's a lot easier for us to go out and plow snow than it is to have to go out and treat and retreat and
Yeah.
retreat the roads over the course of 12 or 24 or 36 hours. When we're out plowing, yeah, we may be treating as we plow every second or third pass to try to keep the snowpack from happening. But that's not the same as, if we're doing that, we're treating every, say, 4 or 5 hours. We're putting down 250 pounds of salt per road mile, as opposed to if it's a raining or a close to freezing event and we're having to treat every 2 or 3 hours, we're putting down 500 pounds per road mile.
Yep.
So. Any other
I'm
questions?
good.
None here? No?
Cemetery?
Okay, so cemetery, decreased purchase services by just shy of 11%, simply because we didn't need to spend the funding this year, so we're planning on doing the same, and we needed more funding on the supplies side. So supplies went up by 11%, the other went down by just shy of 11%. It's a fairly small budget. The increase, a couple $100 more in gasoline, that's what we utilize for mowing everything, string trimming everything at the cemeteries. Increase in cost for fertilization and liming the cemeteries. Increase in cost in filter kits to service a couple of lawnmowers. Slight increase in concrete mix. And a very slight increase in the cost of string for string trimmers. Any questions?
Travis, unrelated, I guess, to the operating budget, there is a special revenue fund regarding the cemetery. Do you ever go to that particular fund often for anything?
It's at the discretion of the cemetery commission. So If requests come up, if things need to get done, the cemetery commission would then vote upon how that money is being utilized.
So between the two, it should be covered,
Yes.
the operating budget and the unlikely need to go to that special revenue fund.
Yes.
Questions?
And I do not have a budget for the water department at this point in time. We do have a water department meeting tomorrow evening. I was hoping to try to bring it to you folks this evening, but I think at this point in time, it's probably best that I provide it to the water board and let them make some decisions, because there's decisions that need to be made before I present it to you folks.
That's an interesting, certainly they're not being ready is totally acceptable, because it's really a courtesy to this committee that it comes to us, because it's not part of the town operating budget, it's an enterprise fund. But it's always nice to see what's going on there as well, so.
Certainly.
In the event that we can have you back to present it, that'd be great, but totally understandable that it's not before us this evening. Not a problem.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns?
None here.
Nope.
Thanks.
Thank you, Travis.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
I think you lost the pen, Travis.
It's hot off the presses.
Thanks.
So Heather, you and I were back and forth, and I haven't figured out how to check my email at 6:18 when I'm driving, so
We'll see how accurate.
I think that this is, we had something similar to this a year ago, and I think it may work well this year, which is basically to keep a single-page scorecard, if you will, in terms of how we're doing in terms of the budget deficit. And just as a point of review, there's been narratives, there's been information sent to us. The long and short of it is that there was a initial budget deficit with people, departments, cost centers in compliance of 472,000, and you can read the rest. Then there were 12 departments that had made special, which is that out-of-compliance document that we'll spend some time on later, that was to the tune of $702,000. So that our starting point was $1,174,451. And I think what we should do throughout the next 2 or 3 weeks is keep track, not go back and change the in compliance, not go back and change the out of compliance, but leave those and keep the changes in this plus minus column, both on the revenue side and also at the expenditure side. Some of these things have come to be, and I think you'll be grateful for me to say, as much as I email you people to death, I do not send you every single email that I get. I think, and maybe that's a mistake, but I think I share with you the significant ones. So there was an email regarding the assessor, then there was back and forth in terms of where we might be regarding that. And I'll just give you a quick little snapshot. They basically submitted new growth at $80,000, which they went on record as saying, that's very, very conservative, we want to be conservative, and then they went on to say, but we don't think we'll reach it. So we said, well, give us a number that you think you will reach. And now it's down to 75,000. So that's going to change things by $15,000. Conversely, local revenues, I think in the form in particular of motor vehicles, have gone up by 15,000. I'm not sure that wasn't by coincidence, but nevertheless, the overall impact is negated. Wachusett Regional School District, there have been some changes. I got excited when not particularly excited, but when the percentage rate went from 8.50 to 7.99, I thought that was a lot of movement, but we hadn't put 8.55 in the budget in the first place. But that number is going to move a little bit.
Very little, by about $1,000.
Right. So that ruined my day, but nevertheless, we'll fill that number in when we refine it a little bit. Worcester County retirement, you can see for yourself. And you got to be really careful in terms of these numbers changing. Is the expenditure going up or is the expenditure going down? So we got to be very careful that we don't have it in the wrong mode. But as you can see, right here, Worcester County retirement is down, employee benefits are down. I have, in the schedule that I gave to you folks, I've added things like the Economic Development Committee, the Charter Review Committee, the Finance Committee, and the Tree Warden. Getting ahead of some of our review, but I think when we get through this, that schedule, that sheet's gonna populate rather fully, and at the bottom of the page, we'll see what our overall deficit is, which is going to lead to a discussion in terms of further cuts, overrides, what level, et cetera, et cetera. So, that's kind of where we are right now.
So just to confirm, what number is in for the school for the 472?
That's above the 2.5%.
So that's the total assessment to the town, above the 2.5%, which, when we sent the letter to the district and said, if we go, if we get submitted a assessment above 2.5%, it would go to the town for a vote for an override. So that 472 is the increase above the 2.5% that we, it's just an out of guidance like every other out of guidance.
Right, but that's our budget. That's the total, that's a total number there. So I'm just trying to understand.
No,
I'm gonna-
the 412 is not a,
It says budget deficit.
okay. There's no number for that.
Yeah, there's no number.
There's nothing on the WRSD.
I know, I'm looking, so budget deficit says 472. That has to be made up of a whole bunch of numbers.
Yes.
Yes.
So that
At the top,
470,
you're at the top of the page.
Right, I'm at the very top of the
That's
page.
Wachusett at 2.5%.
Only at 2.5.
yeah,
Yes.
that's.
Not
only
at what they've submitted.
No, what they've submitted gets thrown in with the out of guidance
Out of guidance.
requests. And Wachusett's out of guidance request is 412, 431.
Yeah, so I would request, that is not that's a budget deficit with, I'm trying to look at this, so when I first looked at it, I looked at that top line as, this is our budget deficit with all budgets in. But that's not what that is. That's a budget deficit without the expenses below in,
That's a budget deficit within the 2.5% guidance.
but our whole budget.
Is the 1.174 deficit. That's everything else that's out of guidance. So if you look at all of these
Right.
papers, you've got an out of guidance. Everyone that has out of guidance put in what, this number is above the 2.5% that they were limited to.
Yeah, but we're talking apples and oranges here, because part of that budget deficit is Wachusett.
Which is part of our budget right now.
Yes.
Right, so
For sure.
that's what I'm trying to understand what numbers.
So I think it's important, right? And we talked about this at the very beginning when we looked at out of guidance stuff. Out of guidance stuff is not wish list for departments. It's what departments have submitted that they need to continue operating. It only falls on an out of guidance sheet because it went outside of our rule that was over 2.5%. Because the school, both the FinCom and Select Board took a position on the school, and because the school exceeded that 2.5%, we treated them the same way as we did the DPW, right? After their assessment exceeded 2.5% in our operating budget.
Right.
So part of our operating budget's deficit includes the amount for the school, if it was funded at 2.5% assessment, The remaining balance of that moved over to out of guidance, just like Travis needed more money for salt and sand, it went over to out of guidance. Someone else needs money for whatever, it goes over to out of guidance. It doesn't mean they don't need it, it's just a way of accounting for it. So I would say that the true deficit is everything that FinCom believes should be supported for the year, that's both within the budget and in the out of guidance document. That's the true deficit. That's why the number at the bottom really reflects it. I don't think there's a way to say what numbers the school. The reason we say the out of guidance number as well, because when we did the memo to the school last year, we said anything you submit to us that is going to exceed 2.5% of your assessment from the year prior will be put forward on the override concept. So that's why it needed to be accounted separate. We start putting it in here, we have to start dicing, pulling, and everything else. So it slides over.
Yeah, no, I understand that a lot. I'm just trying to get a baseline. So that minus 472 deficit at the very top of the page. Right? That's where we're I'm just thinking of from an accounting worksheet, right? We're starting at minus 472. I'm just trying to figure out, we have a revenue number. So one request I would like to have added to this is our revenue number and the expense number that equals that 472. Because this, just looking at 472, my initial assumption was, this is what we're misaligned. Because then you have puts and takes underneath it.
Sorry.
So that's what confused me. And if I'm getting confused, I'm pretty sure if we're gonna share this with people and try to explain why we're gonna ask for either cuts or why we're gonna ask for an override, the paper needs to live where someone can look at it and say, I get it.
So how's that?
Okay.
Heather, what did you just say?
She
How's
put up
that?
a new, so expenses.
Mark doesn't love it. You got a preview of it.
Okay, so this is saying that based today, we have revenues of 16.3, 16.2. We have current expenses. Now, to understand, are those what, as we're using this term,
In guidance.
so these are in guidance expenses.
So let me interrupt you. Can we go back to the white sheet, which is the one he has in front of him?
Yeah, but it doesn't have all the numbers on.
I literally just want to make sure you're okay with the first line.
Well, that's what that explained, I believe that explained it. So the first line is our current known revenue and our current guidance at 2.5%.
Correct.
That's perfect. So now I understand, so,
Yeah, the way I understand it is, without anything, at 2.5%, we're starting in the hole at 472.
Correct. Period.
Before we do anything else.
Period.
We're in the hole before we, sorry for the language, folks on TV, but we're in the hole at 472 before we do anything. Above 2.5.
Including a revenue number that has been submitted to us that we have not voted to approve.
right.
Right.
But that's what's been submitted out of the gate to the Finance Committee.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. No, that's
Then
perfect.
the next line is, okay, we understand your memo of in guidance, but we can't live within
Right.
in guidance.
Right.
So these are the things that we need in terms of guardrails and
Right.
street lining and new positions on the police department and the Wachusett Regional School coming in at 8.5%. That's all in the 702. So if all of those were approved, which we've not done, we would have a budget deficit of 1,174,000.
Yeah, this is a personal request, and it could be denied. I just think out of guidance without context makes it sound like they want above and beyond versus this, and we might want to break the school out of it so it's clear, but that out of guidance really is the request that departments have to run what they believe is the right budget.
Right. It's really probably what the out of guidance is capturing is the increased cost of doing business year over year due to inflation, other increases. I'm not saying we should change that. I mean, I understand what we're saying here, but it is really the cost of keeping normal operations year over year due to inflation and other cost pressures.
Trying to keep up with a 2.5% number that's 45 years old.
Right,
Right.
right, exactly right. It's well said, Jeremy, yeah.
But the 702 out of compliance, I would be more than happy to break it down between schools and town.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, and,
Yep.
you know, the importance is out of guidance, maybe parentheses, 2.5% increase.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or something, just because if you read out of guidance and you haven't followed along, it would sound like they're asking for something above what they need.
Right. And that 412 Wachusett increase, so out of that 702, 412 of that is the increase to the Wachusett Regional School. It may capture Bay Path too, I'm not sure on that, but,
I don't think there was, I think Bay Path was flat.
Bay Path, yeah, excuse me, Bay Path is flat, yep.
That'd be a request. It would just be easier to track what town, school, and,
No, but it's clear, it's good.
So-
Well, it's not good, but,
So now the thought process is, again, with all of the emails that have been sent to everybody, the FY '26 budget summary that was not sent to you recently, but couldn't even give you the date when it was sent, but it was before our last meeting. That shows the departments that generate the $472,000 deficit, of which there are only 12 that are contributing to the $702,000 out of guidance deficit. So if there are 41 cost centers in only 12, including Wachusett Regional, are in the 702, we could go through a lot of budgets, I don't want to say quickly, but we would need to do it reasonably quickly because the weeks and the hours are running through the hourglass. And I think that it was a little bit off point a year ago where we approved a lot of them, but the question was, did we approve every single one of them? I think it would be smart that we approve every single one of the 41 this year, 41 cost centers. So with that, if anybody could locate their budget summary, FY '26 budget summary, we could start with, for example, the select board, the finance committee, the reserve fund, and so on and so forth.
yep. We can just have a minute, we'll pull that up.
Yeah, this is, I have it loaded as the PDF. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, we'll get it.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
get it.
So what-
But if you have the workbook, you have access to the workbook?
Yeah, I just got it, there's a lot here, so let's,
I also have it on the screen, if that helps.
yeah, we can.
Here it
I
is.
can make it bigger if we need.
So just to scroll down to the bottom, and you're gonna see 472 at the bottom.
We might see the new number, 423,
I think it's March
542.
4th.
I can pull up the older version if you'd prefer.
Well, that's the whole point, Heather. I think if we have a moving target, we're gonna really lose ourselves.
Do you want me to go back to the old version? The only thing that changed in this version is employee benefit and retirement, or rather, retirement assessment's the only number that
No,
changed.
that wasn't the right.
Hold on, I can fix this. Give me 1 second.
Can I say something while Heather's doing that? I think the fact that it says request.
Can we get a microphone, Carol?
Right here, excellent.
I'll have this.
Okay. Well, fixed.
I believe the heading for the green heading that says request, that's not really a correct heading because the requests are more than those numbers. So that's not really, in my mind, correct heading. It should be within the 2.5% or whatever. And then there should be another column that shows the actual requests, because I think we're going to get lost the fact that Wachusett have requested, like you said, over 400,000 more than what that number is, and and we've got to pay it regardless. Whether we've gone override or not, we're in deficit for that number.
This is the problem we got into last year when we were voting for one number and then another number with the, yeah, I got to agree with Carol on that one. So this is just showing you in guidance, right? Not actually what the request is.
So one suggestion might be, right, maybe to do it in reverse order, right? Look at the out of guidance stuff first. There's a column in here that allows for the final FinCom numbers. So if you look at the out of guidance stuff first, see what the committee is interested in supporting, what they feel, is the right request. And then if you say yes to any of those, and then you go back through any of the original budgets, have any yays or nays, and then we can add in the column those things all together. So you have a final number. So
So let's do one budget to set the stage, okay? So at the top of the page, there, you're gonna see the select board. Okay? So the number that I'm focusing on is 95,500. Then I have a workbook that has 4, 5, 6, 7 pages for 95,500. That's the budget that they've requested. That's the budget we should opine on right now.
there's no out of guidance for select board, it's just,
Right. Right. So I'm trying to stay with the non-out of guidance budgets, of which there are plenty of them, because there are only 12 that are not. So for example, if we look at the select board and you have the workbook, I'm looking for us to approve or disapprove or reduce or add the budget that's been submitted of 95,500, which has all manner of detail in terms of salaries, purchase services, supplies, dues. Then there's all kinds of detail pages behind that. That's what I think we need to do. And I think we can get through 15 or 20 of them, maybe slightly more, but at least that many this evening. And then come back to the 12 that their request is really their out of guidance request. That's what they're asking for. So does that make sense? But I think,
Yeah, that's fine.
I assume that everybody would bring or have access to their workbook, and if that's not the case, that's gonna be a problem.
No, that's fine. And the question I would have too on these, would we want to vote on these individually? Is that your request?
Yes, I'm gonna
Yeah.
go down the order here, and I'm gonna ask you as clerk to keep track of the ones that we did do.
Yep,
So by default, that would leave out the ones we haven't done yet.
you got it.
So the first one I'm looking for to take action is the select board,
One point,
95,500.
before we do that, can I just, somebody joined on the Zoom. Did anyone else, thank you, from the Finance Committee join?
let me take a look.
Just want to make sure so we have that right.
Nope.
Okay, thanks. Fire away.
So, select board. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Motion is made to approve, and second. Any discussion? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Abstentions? None? It passes. I would go to the Finance Committee, which is account number 1131. It has a budget of $170.
So
Is there a
So
motion
moved.
to disapprove? Is there a motion to dissolve the Finance Committee?
So moved.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. Finance Committee passes. Reserve Fund, which is account 1132, $50,000. We have traditionally budgeted 40 or 50,000, 50 the last 3 years. It's a nice safety net for those emergent, extraordinary, unforeseen items that precludes having to go into any of the stabilization funds, which requires a town vote, or go to special town meeting or annual town meeting. This is at the clear discretion of the Finance Committee. I would strongly recommend approval.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. Reserve fund passes. Next is legal services, 1151.
Move to approve.
Discussion. Should we
Yeah,
wait?
this is going to be a tough one, and I think Ben wanted to discuss it. I would agree. So let's reverse Robert's rules and let's discuss it before a motion.
Withdraw.
We throughout the year are constantly transferring money into the legal services. So I guess the question is this the right number?
No, it's too low.
So,
Can you pull up 1151? Do you have a
yeah,
narrative sheet?
I don't know if I have a narrative sheet.
You do a drop down, right? Does it have it when you click on the green?
Doesn't look like
No,
it.
on the expense details, but some of them got wonky on me.
So 1151. So it was in the.
So
March
the
30th.
expense details, right? So this year we had 2 collective bargaining agreements. We also had some unforeseen other things that we did not anticipate, and I don't think we could have anticipated. As far as our legal budget, as of this next bill cycle, we will be down to 0 for the town's general legal. We'll still have about 6,000 for tax title. And when I talked to the treasurer collector, she did not anticipate using much of those funds, if any of them, for the rest of the fiscal year. So there's a chance we'll be able to pull some from there. I do think there's a possibility we end up in reserve this year for legal. Not as much as we did last year, because I think it's gonna put us a little bit later in the year, and then we'll be able to do a year-end transfer if we need to. I'm just gonna pull up the details on this sheet, because I think.
Heather, I'm going to interrupt, but to Ben's point, a year ago, that account spent $30,043. And if I'm not mistaken, at the last select board meeting, executive session, there were 2 items in litigation. So for us to budget 24,000, when we have spent 30,000 in prior years, and the need for legal services isn't gonna fade away or dissipate, or nor are we gonna get reduced prices, I don't think 34 is high enough. I wrote down it should be 24. I wrote down, I think it should be 30 or 35. I know we're trying to keep budgets close and tight, but if we know that we've already incurred those expenses, then let's budget what we really need, and then see where we are.
I have no issue with that. I don't see legal expenses going down. So,
All right, we haven't even talked about the MTBA,
Excuse me?
The mass transit
yeah,
stuff that's going to be coming. I'm pretty sure that's
it's a great
going to
point.
need some reviews.
Yeah, yeah.
Can the chairman make a motion?
He may.
Of course.
I would recommend that it be increased to $30,000.
Second.
Second. Motion's been made, it's been seconded. Any discussion? None, all in favor?
All right, question. So how do we vote on that if it's not reflected on the sheet? I mean, does it have to be changed before we take a vote? Or?
No.
I think there's a,
Up
you
to
would
30?
enter that in,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, I'm suggesting 30, and that goes back to our scorecard.
Okay.
A little bit later.
Okay.
It's just an unusual move. We're advocating more spending, not
Yes.
less.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Well, to-
Seeing that none of you had courage enough to increase the finance committee budget.
Okay. I
So
withdraw my
There's been
question.
a motion made and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Any noes? None. Abstentions? No. Passes at $30,000. Next one I have is Conservation Commission, 1171. It's a modest budget, dominated mostly by conservation agent, which is a modest amount of money. It dominates the budget, but it's a modest amount of about $7,000. Heather, is that a regional arrangement?
No.
So,
We have Doug Dillon, who works for us. Doug Dillon works as our conservation agent. He works about, I think it's like 4 hours a week.
yep,
It's a very large amount of time.
he's a terrific asset, and he had a hard act to follow with Mia McDonald, but he did well. So we've been fortunate to have two good conservation agents in a very technical type of work. So, is there a motion to approve the Conservation Commission budget?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. Next, I have Regional Planning. Budget request is 1622. That is a bargain ad supreme. That basically involves CMRPC. If you've ever seen them, they're excellent in the work that they do. I'm sure they're called on many, many times throughout the year. $1,600 seems to be money well worth it. Is there a motion to accept the regional planning at 1622?
So moved.
Motion's been made, second?
Second.
Second, any discussion?
None.
None, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. It passes. Do I dare go to town insurance, Heather? 1193?
You could. Do you want me to open up the details for that one?
This is general liability, workers' comp, et cetera. The amount budget is 236,000.
Yes, and those are the best estimates with working with our aging. We don't have finalized numbers yet, so. I don't think we'll have finalized numbers by next week either, but
Right.
I think these are what we know at the moment.
I mean, I was gonna say, I mean, from what I've seen in insurance, that does not seem like an unreasonable increase, given the environment
Right.
on insurance in general. I don't see it as unreasonable.
FY '24, we spent 215. You can see we're budgeted 224, $12,000 increase, which is essentially 6%, but we can't tell them 2.5%.
Yeah.
We can, but then we're gonna have problems with our own claims.
Right.
Right.
And I don't advocate we self-insure.
No,
So,
no.
One quick question. So most of the increase was in deductible. What's there's 7,500 in deductible increase.
Let me just pop over there, give me 1 second.
I mean, the policies remain relatively the same or even went down a little.
Ben, I don't see a $7,500 increase. I see it having been budgeted for 10,000 a
10,000.
year ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
10,000 this year.
From 24 to,
Oh,
to,
okay.
to
24.
25, it went
Got it.
up 7. So you're right, it was flat. Well, yeah, it was relatively flat. So maybe it came last year and something changed. So that was my,
And I can go into the details if you like.
that's okay. I was comparing it to 24. Did we spend 10,000?
For
Will
the
we-
deductible,
Yeah.
we have at least one claim that's out there right now, so I don't think it's gonna be that high, but oftentimes we have like 1,000 here, 1,000 there.
Right, so this is more, just to understand, this is more to cover if a claim is made. The deductible the town has to pay.
Correct.
That's
Against
part
the
of it. The other part is sometimes we have some of the numbers that will go up mid-year, right? If we add a new vehicle to the insurance, we might get a little bit of an increase, so sometimes having that there is helpful as well.
Okay. Okay. Question answered.
Has there been a motion made for 236,703 for insurance?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None, abstentions? None? It passes. Regional dispatch, 1215.
So we got really lucky with the regional dispatch numbers. This is gonna be the first year that we're getting assessed 100%. Last year was only 75%. We were still getting 25% off of the assessment covered by the state 911 grant. This year it's 100%. Our overall total assessment before you take off last year's discount actually went down. Went down for a couple reasons. Number one, our police department has done a really strong campaign of reducing what the dispatch calls for service. And they use that calls for service number as 50% of how they calculate the assessment in the district. So the higher the calls for service, the higher that breakdown is. We're now actually the lowest calls for service in the regional dispatch district. The second piece is that they did union negotiations this year, but they were also able to obtain more money from the state than they had previously. So that helped a little bit with their overall costs. So yes, this is still an increase for us and still a significant increase for us at 15%. But compared to what we had initially anticipated, and even just looking at last year's numbers, which I think were about 130,000 for the full assessment, I mean, this is a pretty good deal in comparison.
Agreed. Two comments. One is we knew it was coming. When it was 25%, we knew it was going to be 50. When it was 50, we knew it was going to be 75. And last year, we knew it was going to be 100. And there's really no alternative.
Right.
This is the system that we have. So is there a motion to accept regional dispatch at 121,593?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. It passes.
Quick question, and this is going into these, and, so these are all above guidance, right? We have no control over them, I'm not arguing that,
Right.
but, so when we say out of guidance, are these part of it?
No.
Okay. Just trying to keep the logic straight. I understand we have no control of these are going up.
So the in-guidance is those town departments that complied with in-guidance plus those that we had no control over.
Right.
So, good clarification. Animal Control Officer, 1292.
So this is a regional agreement that we entered into with Rutland a number of years ago when our animal control officer was leaving. So they give us an assessment of what the cost is for them to provide the service on an annual basis. So that provides, any calls they go out to, whatever their staff is, taking care of any animals, boarding. any citations they have to issue, any follow-ups, involvement with the town clerk's office for any dangerous dogs, any hearings, anything.
As a town, are we pleased with the service that we're getting?
Well, when I first started, we used to get complaints on about a daily to a weekly basis. Since we have had them and been working with Jen, who's the main animal control officer up there, I haven't received any.
Is it
So-
just Rutland and Paxton, or is there a consortium?
We don't have anything super formal other than our agreement with Rutland. I do believe they're starting to service some other communities. But it's not set up the same way as the regional dispatch, per se. Well,
in
in some
general-
ways it is. It's independent agreements. It's not saying, okay, this is a one single.
So this is the kind of thing that's money spent, and if you don't hear anything, everything's good, pretty much? Okay. But again, I don't think I hear much about it because, I mean, how many people in town really have an animal complaint?
Right.
I mean, anytime we had something that recently came up, we reached out, they got back to us instantaneously, and she didn't call me right away because she hopped in the car heading this way before she called me, because she was already en route, right?
So it sounds like we're getting a good deal for what we're,
It's a good deal. We're not paying for a vehicle, we're not paying for supplies. We pay them, they take care of everything, the insurance, all of those pieces, and they make sure, if we have something we need, they meet it.
Move to approve.
second.
So the motion's been made?
Yes.
Second?
Yep.
Any further discussion? None. All in favor of animal control officer at 19,187?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. It passes. 1295, tree warden.
So I think as everyone knows, ask any tree warden, the current or the past, we need money for trees. Can we have more money for trees? We really could use more money for trees, right? That being said, with the state of the budget as it is this year and things being just as tough as always, I talked to Kirk and he said, let's just level fund. So that was what he had requested of me.
So my, my two comments on this is that opera funds to the tune of 100,000 were used toward tree management, which I think was a good move, and we're sure all happy to see that. At that time, it probably could have been 200,000. So the tree management issue is a serious one. Historically, we've budgeted around $10,000. Notwithstanding what the tree warden has said, but $4,000 gets you 5 trees. So I don't want to overstate or overrule the tree warden, but I would go clearly on record as saying this is way too low.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I certainly understand the point of level funding. That's generous, but this is a problem area. Will continue to be a problem area. I don't know if it warrants some quick discussion, or we just, money's too tight, we keep it as is, but it might warrant some discussion.
Well, given the fact that the tree warden has submitted this budget, I think the proper thing to do would be not to reduce it, but to approve it, but to keep in our back pocket that this really should be revisited at some point.
Yeah.
That's going to be insufficiently budgeted, but nonetheless, is there a motion to approve it at 4,025?
So moved.
Second.
Sec.
Any discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. It passes. Waste collection, 1443.
So this is a budget each year that is literally one of those wash pieces, right? We do our best to try to calculate what the expenses are. We try to raise exactly what we need for the expenses and therefore have a wash. So whatever's on the expense side, we have the exact number on the revenue side. So If we thought the cost was gonna go up based on contracts to 500,000, then we would put on the revenue side 500,000, work with the Board of Health to look at what we're collecting and make sure that the costs were equating that. We have an amazing service in town. We use Pellegrino. They've been doing it for a number of years. This is going into the last year of our contract with them, so next year we'll be looking at whether or not we need to go out to bid. The cost that Paxton residents have to pay for trash service does not compare to anywhere else. I can tell you for a 3-month period, I paid $209. It just went up again. I think that everyone else pays about $66 for that same 3-month period. So it's a phenomenal service, and like I said, we just try to match the cost so that whatever the expenses are for the town, we're able to match them on the revenue side.
So to that point, Heather, I would not ask you to pull up the revenue schedule that you have, the detail of that, but this exact same number is on the revenue side. So there's really not a lot of argument of not liking this, because it's going to impact the revenue.
Yep.
So is there a motion to approve, waste collection at account 1443 at $447,359?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. Veterans Agent, 1543.
So I can go in and open this up. If anyone has any questions on it, it'll just take me a second. So our veterans we only have one veteran who we currently provide the services to in town. Their expenses have gone up, right? So we are required to provide whatever their expenses are. We get reimbursed a certain percentage from the state, and usually comes in a substantial period of time later that it comes back to the town. The other part of the cost is we pay a gentleman named Scott for being our veteran service officer. This used to formerly be held by Jeff Kent, thank you. And when we took Scott on, he was great to do it. He was very happy to do it, but he did note that our stipend was pretty low. So I did account for that in this piece. So I will try to open that up now.
Those of us that have had the pleasure to meet him, we are particularly well-served. He's a terrific ambassador for veterans and for the town. I would wholeheartedly support the modest 3-year $400 stipend increase only to $1,500. It's worth every bit of it.
So this stipend increase is $363.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to increase
Yep,
it over time to get him
appreciate
to.
that. Yep, okay, sure. So the main chunk of that is the veterans benefits.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, it's always hard looking at these really tiny budgets. I mean, or smaller budget, 14,000,
Yes.
because you're like, oh my God, 20% increase.
Yeah, right.
It's
It's a
$2,800.
Right.
Move to approve.
Second.
Is there a motion to approve Veterans Agent at $17,000?
So moved.
So moved, yep.
And I second.
Keeping in mind, it's not $17,000 as a stipend.
Right.
The stipend is
Yeah.
$1,500, and veterans' benefits is
Yep.
$15,500. So there's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. It passes. So Heather, I'd like to go through the 5 or 6 debt items, which
You don't want to do library next?
I actually like to wait.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd really like to go to the debt, and I think we should do the proper thing and to do each one of them.
Okay.
But this is one of these, they have no choice. That's what the debt obligation currently is,
Right.
that we need to comply with. So, so with that, there is item 1710. which is excludable, which is a very poor choice of words, but that's what it's called, principal. Excludable debt principal. $356,800 in accordance with a debt service obligation schedule.
Yep.
That I'll make sure everybody gets an updated version of. Which, by the way, you could be thinking, well, maybe it's a nice time to refinance, and I would submit to you the rates are 2.25, 3.50. I don't think we should entertain a motion to
investment.
refinance.
No refinancing at these current rates. Though I think they met this afternoon. I didn't see what they did. No change, maybe, probably.
Bad news is they go out for a number of years. The good news is the rate's pretty good.
Move to approve.
So is there a motion to approve excludable principal of $356,800?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Oh,
Second. Any discussion? None. All in favor?
aye.
Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. Item 1711, not excludable debt. Essentially having to do with school windows.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? And a DPW truck. There was a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. It passes. At $78,200. Item 1750, debt interest. Even though the rates are good, along with it comes some debt interest. We have a balance due of $92,719 in the budget, having to do with the public safety complex. If you vote against it, we won't be able to meet here ever again. So, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. Count 1751, not excluded debt interest. To the tune of $6,197. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. It passes. So there's one other, Heather,
Oh, the borrowing costs?
yes,
Yes.
1709.
Yep, so we usually put that, many years we put that in case we have to do any short-term borrowing. Anything we don't anticipate.
So,
It's just not on the
so
year.
the question is, do we really need it?
It's not, it's, isn't
Right
it
there.
right?
3,500.
Oh.
Next one down.
1709 for 3,500.
Okay.
Is that a safety net?
It is. I mean, I think we can always take it out and come to reserve if we really need it.
Did we use it last year?
We did not.
I don't think we did. We didn't use it in '24. We did budget a little bit for it in '25, but
I would like to say, since we increased the legal fund, just to offset that, we take this out of the budget. If we need to, we have to hit reserve.
Is there a motion to budget this at zero?
So moved.
Second. I'd second it. Any discussion?
None here.
No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Abstentions, none. And a little risky, but do we want to try employee benefits, or do we want to hold that because it's changed quite substantially to what was originally presented?
I would probably hold that one more week only because we have a couple new, we have a couple vacancies, right? We're trying to determine if they're going to be filled and also when those people are filled, if they're going to take insurance, and that changes the safety net substantially depending on the answer to that question. The retirement assessment, though, that number, so it shows 953. I did modify that today on the change version. Jeff, you have my number on it. It's the second to bottom line before that black line, horizontal. It's 904.
017.
904017 is the town's portion of the retirement assessment. So we originally used the number that had trended. Remember, we get the retirement assessment from Worcester County, and then it breaks down for the town's portion, AMC's portion, like Department Water. We can kind of guess based on past years what that percentage is, but they send it out to a third party to actually have that calculated for us. So we don't know until we get it. Well, we just got it. So that's why that number is modified. So the good news is my number was too high, original estimate, which is good. Mark likes it when my number's too high, originally.
48, 49?
Yes.
Okay.
So it drops down to 904, what did you say, Jeff?
017.
904017. And that's going to be the final number for that.
So is there a motion to approve retirement at 904017,
So moved.
Second.
which once again comes to Worcester County Retirement Board? Not much we can do
No
about it.
control.
Yeah.
Yep, so there's been a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstentions? None. It passes. So by my count, we probably have 24 more budgets to do. 12 in the out of guidance category, and 12, which I think, don't want to disparage this point, but I think we can do quickly, town accountant, town clerk, et cetera, et cetera. I think we can do those
Yep.
rather
Let's move forward.
quickly. Library, council on aging, and so on and so forth. I'd like to hold those, and I'd like to hold the other 12, which is going to include police, fire, DPW, Blackstone, and Wachusett Regional, to perhaps have a more robust attendance on the committee, and not just have 4, but if we only have a quorum, we're going to meet.
Yep.
Because we're running out of time. So with that in mind, I think we should hope to meet next Wednesday, which is the 26th.
Yep.
And Heather, am I getting ahead of myself? And then meet the following Wednesday jointly with the select board.
Yes, so we originally in the calendar have April 2nd already docketed for the, what we call this year, just the budget presentation or public hearing. So people, if anyone wanted to be invited and they didn't feel like they were invited at a normal meeting, they could come and ask any questions on the budget. But that's also right now the slated date to do a joint meeting with the select board to set the override number, right? We have a hard deadline of April 7th for any ballot questions to the town clerk. And April 2nd would be that last time. I think that's really scheduled to be able to meet. Hopefully, we don't have to do any extra meetings on different random days. Friday nights, I think we ended up at one point last year with. So if we can avoid that, but also I think to do that, we would have to pretty much wrap everything up on FinCom side next week, which I think is probably manageable based on the information that you guys got through tonight, what you guys have left, and anything else that you all need from me. And then at that point, April 2nd becomes the large meeting to figure out where we go from here.
Yeah, I'd see a three-legged stool next week. One is the 12 departments that I just spoke about, which I would submit would be 30 minutes. We need to approve and vote on the revenue, which I think is going to take 5 to 30 minutes. And then we have the rest of the time on the other ones, which is going to be some interesting, tough, important sledding. But I think after 2 hours, we'll have a budget.
Any thought, I yield to the, do you want to try to move through those 12 tonight?
I'd like to have a little more further time to review them, and
No problem. Yeah.
and I go back to my earlier point, rather have a little bit more population on the attendance side. But I'll defer to the committee.
Either way, it's okay with me.
I see your point.
Yeah.
We did 18 tonight, that's good.
So I think it would be really important, Jeff, if the minutes were to reflect that we voted
will.
on each one of these.
Yep, I'll list them out.
Just on the event that somebody may claim that we didn't. I'd like to have it reflected that we got them all.
You got it.
Speak.
Yep.
So,
And Heather, would you, I'm going to keep this, but would you mind sending me that one email? Thanks for that.
and Ben, you were a last-minute attendee, and we appreciate it very much, because I think it would have been a complete mess if we had to cancel this evening. So all of our appreciation for you to make the changes and the arrangements that you did. And Jeff, you drove 85 miles an hour from New York to be here. We
Well, via Amtrak, but thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're going faster than
And
85.
Heather walked to the meeting.
Well, I
from
did
Town Hall.
I did hitch a ride from Pam, so I didn't have to walk that far.
All right.
My pleasure.
And then we got Jeremy and me, so.
So I'm,
So is there a motion to, excuse me, any public
Yeah,
comment?
geez, we got public comment.
Nope. Is there a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second.
Any discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none, abstentions, none, we stand adjourned.